Oh, they're taking pictures. And everyone could maybe silence their phones while we have these. Okay, they're coming in. Thank you all for rising.
Post the colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
Trees
States.
Arms.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Port. Arms. Left. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you all. You may be seated. So again, welcome and good morning. Thank you to everyone for joining us here at Northwest State Community College for our annual Veterans Luncheon. This is a great opportunity for the college to connect with not only our veterans who are our employees and our students, but also our veterans in our area that we continue to serve, and we appreciate all that you do. Veterans Day is important to me. My father and my grandfather are both in the Navy. My son is currently deployed, stationed in Germany and deployed in Kosovo right now. So I truly value this really important day. So what is Veterans Day? Veterans Day is the day set aside to thank and honor all who have served, living or deceased, but particular the living veterans among us. Veterans fought for our freedoms and risked their lives whether or not we realized it or appreciated it. Without the service of veterans, we would not have the freedoms we share and enjoy today. I'd now like to introduce the president of Northwest State Community College. Todd Hernandez is a native of Northwest Ohio and a 1989 graduate of Napoleon High School. He holds a doctorate of information technology from Walden University and currently serves as the 8th president of Northwest State Community College. He joined Northwest State team in 2010 and has served as a training coordinator, chief information officer, and vice president for innovation and executive vice president. Lieutenant Hernandez served as a nuclear-trained surface warfare officer in the United States Navy for 8 years, from 1991 to 1999, after completing Officer Candidate School and the Nuclear Power Training Program. Dr. Hernandez has a strong commitment to helping people and strengthening community and feels very grateful to be at Northwest State Community College. Please help me welcome Dr. Todd Hernandez.
Thanks, Mike. Before I get started, I'd like to ask that all of our veterans stand so that you can be recognized. My friend Will back there, he and I work out at the gym every morning, so thanks for coming. So when I joined the Navy, I'd been partway through my college career, and I had never been outside of Ohio, Indiana, or Michigan. And if you think back to the late 80s, early 90s, the slogan for the Navy was, join the Navy, see the world, right? And I thought, well, this is a great way for me to give back to my country, but also see the world. And so I did all those things that Mike talked about. And unfortunately, so I was stationed in Virginia Beach on the USS South Carolina. And unfortunately for me, our first deployment was when I learned I get seasick. It's not a great way to start a Navy career. But when I was on the ship, we were all over the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, more times than I care to count. I did a Mediterranean run, so Greece, Italy, Spain, been to England. And I was outside of Northwest Ohio for 10 years. And almost 10 years to the day, I moved back to Napoleon, Ohio. And I was one of those kids that said, when I'm 18, I'm out of here, and I'm never coming back. I made it 10 years. But I started working for Automatic Feed Company when I moved back to Napoleon, and I traveled the world with them. I've been to South Africa, I've been to Japan, all over Mexico, all over Canada. And what I'd like to say, in all those travels, I've never been anywhere where I thought, I wish I had been born here. And we have our issues as a country, but we're still the best country in the world. So to my fellow brothers and sisters in arms, thank you.
Thanks, Todd. My dad told me that he didn't know how to swim, and he was in the Navy, so that was kind of weird too. So for the veterans that stood up and were recognized by Todd, to honor you in your service, we would like to present each of our veterans here today with a commemorative coin signifying our thanks. So thank you very much. We have a couple displays up on the stage this year, and happy and sad to be able to share these next few words, but they're very significant to all of us. On the far right, a chair of honor is a simple yet extremely powerful reminder of those who served in the military but have not yet returned home, totaling more than 82,000 U.S. service personnel since World War II. This empty chair will serve as an instant reminder of all of the sacrifices made for our country by those still missing. And the next display up on the stage is our POW MIA table setting. The small table is set up for one, representing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her suppressors. The table is round, showing our everlasting concern for our POW MIAs. The cloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose, signifying the blood they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. The rose, reminding us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who helped keep the faith while awaiting their return. The yellow ribbon stands for the yellow ribbons worn on the lapels of the thousands who demanded with unyielding determination a proper accounting of our comrades who are not among us tonight. A slice of lemon reminds us of the bitter fate of those missing, captured, and held as prisoners in foreign lands. A pinch of salt denoting the tears of our missing and their families who long for answers after decades of uncertainty. The Holy Bible represents the strength gained from faith in our country, founded as one nation under God, to sustain those lost from our midst. The lighted candle reflects the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to the open arms of a grateful nation. And the glass is inverted, symbolizing their inability to share this afternoon's toast. Let us remember and never forget their sacrifices. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families. With our meals prayer today, I'd like to introduce John Wilson. John spent 6 years in the National Guard, rising to first lieutenant from 1957 to 1963. He has served in various capacities at Northwest State Community College throughout the last 50 years, and now serves on the Northwest State Community College Foundation Board. Please help me welcome John Wilson.
Mike is almost a pro at this. This afternoon, we're honoring those of you who have served from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and the National Guard. As we pause to pray, let's remember those who have served. Father, here we are in your presence, honoring those who have given of their time, talent, and in some cases, their life. We are grateful for them. And this is our way of honoring them and saying thank you for what they have done. May you be gracious to each one of them. As you honor them, give them above and beyond what they deserve. Now, Father, as we pause before you, we give you thanks for this food that has been prepared, the hands that have done that, the ones who are serving it. Help that it might strengthen us physically to be ready to serve you better spiritually. All these things we ask in your Son's name and for his sake. Amen.
All right. Hopefully everything went well with lunch. Everyone looks full and happy. It's a great pleasure that I have to introduce our guest speaker today, James Creager. James is a graduate of Patrick Henry High School and attained his, I'll let some people cheer. All right, good deal. That's all right. Jim attained his triple major degree from Findlay College in math and health and physical education, along with his master's. Jim is also an ordained pastor and began his teaching career at Van Wert High School, where he taught math and coached basketball and football. He returned to Patrick Henry as the athletic director, where he coached basketball, football, and track. He also started and coached the very first ever archery team. He retired from teaching after 39 years and currently farms. While at Patrick Henry, Jim and Bonnie felt a deep need for students, teachers, and the community to learn more about our veterans who selflessly served and fought for our great country. God gave him the opportunity to counsel countless veterans and start a Veterans Day program, which grew from his classroom 25 years ago to what is now an annual event with a breakfast served by students. Faith, family, and love of country and our veterans pretty well describes how Mr. James Creager tries to live his life to serve God. Please help me welcome James Creager.
Go Patrick Henry, right? You got to mention the Buckeyes. I would like to thank everyone involved. Robin Wilcox, hey, that's her right there, talked to me and invited me to come speak, and I'll tell you what, she does a really, really good job and really organized everything, and everybody here is just first class. Thank you. Yeah, first class. Let's give them a hand. even smart to have extra pie. And I'd like to thank all you vets for being here and family that accompanied you and any other guests that are here today, and just everyone that's here. And then I'd like to say right up front, Dr. Todd Hernandez, I really appreciated your comments. And I didn't get to travel like you did, but I want to say something. I love our country deeply. And I heard you talk on the radio at WNDH, and you talked about caring about people. And I looked on the website here at the school, and I saw PIL, people, integrity, and learning. Treat people right, care about people. Everything you do to the best of your ability with integrity, and you're always learning. Always learning. And then you said, stay the course. And that's what I'm here to talk about today with veterans and just everything that's going on, that we stay the course. You know, sometimes war is kind of a hard thing or military to talk about, but in Ecclesiastes 3 it says, to everything there's a season, a time and purpose under heaven, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace, a time to kill and a time to heal. In the Bible, Psalm 106, and that's one reason we speak, and my wife and I have been working with veterans. It says, God says really, that if a nation forgets their past and what they've been through, they wouldn't care as much about their country, speaking of Israel, or their nation, and they would go off course. The exact word is leanness, and it speaks of an animal like in Joseph's dream to Pharaoh, the lean cows with the bones sticking out. That's what our country will be like if we forget you guys. If we forget our history. 3 things. Freedom. Freedom. Our flag. And our country. It means everything. And you're right, we are the greatest country in the world. And you know, we want to keep it that way. And you know, I'm a civilian. I never understood. My dad was World War II. The stuff's back there at the table, you know, and I got the opportunity to talk to some of you guys, you know, when you were coming in. And I thought I was doing really good, man. I would get the Army rifle out, and, you know, we would shoot at cans on Memorial Day and on the 4th of July. And I thought, wow, I'm really a patriotic American. Man, was I wrong. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to say one more thing. There was a picture back there. I don't know if you saw it, but it was Colonel Charles Canahan. He was the first wave on Omaha Beach. And the men never seen combat before. He was upright, walking around. I don't know how many of you saw Saving Private Ryan. And he was encouraging his men in withering fire, and went up to his officers. He was a colonel leading from the front. And he said, get up, move the men, show some leadership. And a long story short, the Germans ended up surrendering. And he took his men with him to the surrender. It was in Brest in France. And the German general, 3-star, was defiant. Who are you to accept this surrender? I want to see your credentials. What makes you worthy to accept a surrender from me? And this guy who had been shot in the wrist and wounded, he won every single medal the United States can give except for the Medal of Honor. He stepped back. His soldiers are standing there. There's a picture back there from an eyewitness account. And those Germans were there, and he pointed to them, and he said, these are my credentials. These are what matters. And I'm saying the same thing to every veteran in here. And we're trying, the college is trying to honor you because you are our credentials. You are our matters. We wouldn't have anything if it wouldn't be for your service. But it's hard, and I've learned, and my wife and I, it comes as a cost at times. And I'm going to say some hard stuff here in a little bit, so I'll say something a little more light to begin with. A student stopped for me to pray for him one night at the church. It was snowing, and he was going to Iraq. And I prayed that God would spare him and be with him and protect him and be with all our troops and everything. And he made it back. But I didn't see him much. And he would just pop up once in a while. And he was kind, I don't even know how to say it, out there. And he was having a really hard time. And that's what opened my eyes to, they used to call it combat fatigue, but now it's PTSD, you know. He showed up at our school. Now imagine if you show up here in a Chevy van painted like the old hippie buses. He's got his fatigues on, a biker vest, and a captain's hat. And I'm telling you what, if you saw him down the hall, you would think, oh man, is he going to rob me or what? And his girlfriend was with him. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie Bo Derek was in 10, you know, that's kind of how she was, or maybe it's his wife, I don't know. And I'll just say she wasn't dressed appropriately. And they went into the high school office, and the secretary, who I coached for basketball, was so scared. And the principal, they come and got me out of class, the superintendent, the principal, okay, and the bus driver, the coordinator of all buses. And he said, he's coming back in an hour, and we will not let him in this building. You go and tell him, because we're not going to, that he can't come in here. And I said, a veteran is not welcome in our building that fought for us? And I talked to him about it, and they said, well, you got to take him to the weight room. We'll get somebody to cover your class. But you watch them. I mean, the two together, if they would have walked down the hall when the bell rang, it would have been like Moses parting the Red Sea. I guarantee it, okay? But he came back. We went out there, and he looked at me, and he said, they didn't want me here, did they? And I talked to him, and then he told me this, and I've been trying my best for a long time to understand. And he said, you know, when you're in the service, it's like going down I-75 and everybody stays in their lane. But when you come home with the civilians, no one knows what lane to drive in. They change lanes. They don't put their turn signal on. No one stays in their lane. I can't stand it. They'd stay in their lane. And you know, to this day, he still pops up once in a while. But he has trouble, and I've never forgotten it. And I put back there my dad and my father-in-law, because it's two different parts that I want to talk to you veterans about. My dad was World War II Special Forces, and we never knew it till after he died, because his information was classified. Never knew it. I only saw 2 times. Once when we were groundhog hunting, he had his Army rifle, and he put it up, and then he snapped it off, and he started crying, and he said, shoot him in the back. And then the other time was when my brother and I wanted to enlist, and he said his company, in the first 10 minutes of battle, 3 survived, him and 2 others. And he said, you're not going to enlist. And back then it was honor your father and mother, you know. And then I married this beautiful lady right here. And God blessed me with her father. You can't imagine this guy. We were there for a Memorial Day picnic, and he said, hey, come on, let's go for a ride. And I go, wait, it's Memorial Day, we're here. And I guess I didn't even know he was a vet then. And we got in the car, and he told me he was suffering from what they call combat fatigue. And I found out after he died, 94% of the people that he went in with didn't come back. Most people in World War II were active in combat or good in combat from 80 to 90 days. He was in combat for 2.5 years. That's 870 days. And he started telling me, he told me all this stuff. He was in the 4th row on the right side when Patton gave the famous speech. He told me about the Stuka bombers coming down and the troop ships when they went to the very first battle of World War II being sunk in the Mediterranean. The Kasserine Pass when they defeated Rommel and were coming around and it was ice cold and tanks on the edge of a cliff. If the guy didn't drive just right, the tank with the men rolled over the cliff. The six-wheel drive trucks rolled over the cliff. And he always cried. During the breakout, a major that he knew really well said, hey, we're going to have a show. You come with us, okay? So they went up to what you would call the front lines where they bombed the Germans, and they said, they dug in, and they said, hey, we're going to set off smoke bombs, and this is the truth. 2,000 bombers went over. He told me after they went over, the sun didn't shine for a day and a half. A day and a half. And they lit the smoke bombs, everything's going good, and the wind changed. And the plane, you just don't turn bombers around like that. Bombs were dropping all around him. He told me he never, and he's a battle-hardened vet. He was in 5 amphibious landings. One time he was 13 boats back, and the ramp would go down. The first 12 boats, not one man made it. Not one. And then they think the Germans' machine gun barrel got hot and melted, and that's the only reason they got to shore. But he's a battle-hardened vet, and he said it was the first time I've ever known terror. I didn't know what the word terror meant until the bombs were dropping. And afterwards, a lot of the people weren't there anymore. And there was an area as big as a football field, and he wore a size 8.5 shoe. And on that area of a football field that big, he couldn't go one place and put his foot down and not step on a body part. And as a civilian, I thought I was doing good. I thought I understood veterans. We thought we knew what was going on. But we don't, so you have to forgive us, vets. And I'll talk about things we're trying to do our best here. He carried a piece of paper with him after it came out. It's back there on the table. Robin made 12 copies. It's an eyewitness account of Omaha Beach, Dog Green. And he was there. And he came. I asked him to come and speak the very first Veteran Day. I was so moved by him at Patrick Henry that he came and I couldn't even get to Jim. And he spoke in my room and to my classes, and by the end of the day, they wrote so many passes. The superintendent was there, the principal was there, all the secretaries there. And he was talking about being American and loving your country and do anything you could possibly do because the sacrifice that was paid was so great. So great. And the value of something is determined by the cost that you guys paid, you know? But anyway, he carried that piece of paper with him till he died, and she made 12 copies, and there's copies back there if you would want to read an eyewitness account of what they went through. I had an opportunity, and I'm going to, just these 3 people, because one's a Vietnam vet, real quick, to talk to a guy that was on the Bataan Death March and about how Pearl Harbor was bombed, and they had the planes all loaded and ready to go, and MacArthur said no. The next day they were bombed, all the planes were gone, and they fought for 3.5, 4 months up the peninsula until they had to surrender. His ration was, look what we had to eat, and it was good. His ration was a cup of rice and a cup of water a day. And a lot of them gave that up for the wounded. For the wounded. That's the heart of the American soldier. You know, they're your brothers in arms. You guys know what I'm talking about there. First thing the Japanese did is had them take their shirts off and their hats and everything. And within a couple days, a few degrees off the equator, their whole back, forehead was blisters from sunburn. If you couldn't keep up, they bayoneted you and pushed you in the front of a tank. You come to a water hole, and they set a table down, and they bet money who was going to break first, an American, because they didn't give them water, and who was going to get up and run to the water hole. And when they did, they shot him, and then the guy collected his money. And then water holes that were contaminated with bodies or different things, they didn't even guard those. They wanted them to drink and get sick so they could get rid of them. We talked about prisoners of war and table and different things. They put him on a ship to go to a prison camp in Japan then, because he survived it. And he was down in the hole with horses and other men. And when they went to put more men in and they opened it up, he looked at his skin and he goes, "Oh my gosh, what happened to me? I'm black." It was lice. The lice were so thick on him, they covered him. His skin looked black. And you know, I talk about these things and sacrifices, and I have a friend who was in the military, and he was just a clerk, and he was a typist. What matters is whatever job God arranged for you to do in the military, did you do it your best? In Psalm 139, if you would want to read it, it talks about our life is as a windrow. Some of you baled hay behind a baler maybe. Some of you may not know what I'm talking about. There's a windrow, and the baler follows that. That's the direction you take. Our lives before God are that way. He already knows the beginning and the end. It says so. It's all planned out. So if you saw combat, you didn't see combat, you were a truck driver, you were a clerk, whatever, you were right where God wanted you. And he doesn't make mistakes. I had a soldier call me. His mom called me first and said, "Would you call?" He was in 82nd Airborne. He was going on his first mission. Okay? And he goes, "Is God going to hold me accountable when I take life?" And I said, "It says in the Bible, thou shalt not kill," but really that's how, shall not murder. And in Romans 13, it talks about how you're supposed to serve your government. And I said, "No, he isn't." I said, "You should go be the best soldier you can possibly be." And I talked to 2 people here today that work with veterans. And they help them. And if you have a problem, and there's triggers, a vet just from Desert Storm 2005, Second Battle of Fallujah stopped at my house, and he had a trigger, and he was going nuts 2 days ago in the evening. And sometimes just to have somebody to talk to that kind of understands, you know what I mean? It makes all the difference in the world. And then you probably already know this, but my dad survived, and he said there's always a way out. You just haven't found it yet. And a neighbor that used to hire me, he hired me, I'm a freshman. He had a 6-wheel drive troop truck, no power steering, no air conditioning, no radio. It was surplus, and he put a great big screw on front to fill ditches that we ditched. And he had an engine on the back that ran the screw. So I'm a freshman. He puts me in here. There's 2 transmissions beside me. The window's pushed open. All the dirt and dust come open. A World War II troop truck. And you have to shift gears for the speed of this. You got to drive the truck. You can't hardly steer it, all the weight on the front. And I said, "I just can't do this. I cannot do this. I just can't." And he looked at me and he grabbed me by the arm and he said, "You listen and don't forget this. There isn't any vehicle made that you can't drive. There isn't anything that you can't do. What you got to have is got to want it bad enough." That's what he told me. You got to want it bad enough. I grew up with veterans. They're all around us. And I never realized any of this stuff. You know? I never realized that it's hard for a civilian to understand the sacrifice. So, in closing, so our country is so great, and it is the best country in the world, and the cost has been so great. If you're a vet here or you're not a vet, God has a plan for your life. And I don't pass in a crowd a veteran's hat without making a beeline to that person and thanking them and talking to them. And I don't care how far I have to walk or where I have to go. And then, and this is a hard one, Bonnie's dad talked to me about it. My dad never talked about it. I found out when he was dead. And if you can share, at least to your family, all the veterans that we had opportunity to work with, a lot of them never said anything, and they were hurting to the day they died. And I know it's hard to talk about, but if you can, your kids, I've talked to so many kids, dozens. I just wish what my dad did. Wish what my mom did. And they didn't know. And not only is it healing, but it's that Bible verse in Psalms. If we forget, if we don't pass it on, how will they know the sacrifice? How will they know the cost? How it's so, so important. So there's a plan for your life. There's always a way out. Are you having fun? That vet that stopped, I said, how do you handle this trigger? What do you do? When we were talking, and he says, I do something I like to do. And he traps and he shoots. Vietnam helicopter pilot walked up to us, and we didn't know he was a pilot. We were in Florida. And he said, are you having fun yet? Are you having fun? And he said, you should. Veterans earned that for you. Didn't he, Bonnie? And then he started crying and saying he only had so many seconds that he could have his helicopter down, and his friends got shot down. And the way he gets through is, are you having fun? The way my father-in-law got through was his relationship with Jesus Christ and reading his Bible. And he saw more combat than anybody ever talked to you. And I could tell you stuff, but if you listen to what I say, and some of you are going to know what I'm talking about here. It gets in your mind and you can't get rid of it. Sometimes I wake up at nights and it comes back what veterans have told me, and you can't sleep. You know? So, a story. And then there was this Vietnam veteran. This is his story. And they went to this show where they always had helicopters, and he was a door gunner. And he went with his wife, Lucille. His name was James. And they went every year. And he said, I want to get back in a helicopter again. I want to ride. And she goes, no, it costs too much. $50 is $50. And that went on for years. In the last couple of years, it was the same helicopter pilot. And the pilot heard him. He went up to him. He said, well, tell you what. I'll give you a ride. Ride's free. But you can't say a word. I'm going to put this bird through its paces, and if you don't say a word, I will not charge you. So they go, okay. So they got in. He got his dream, to go on the ride. And I guess I seen them. They set back, and then it's like they've been shot out of a gun, and they took off, and he made circles, and he went up real high, and he dove and did all kinds of stuff. And he's up in the cockpit, not a word, not a word. He landed it, and he said to James, oh, man, you didn't say a word. I can't believe you didn't say a word. I put this through its paces. And he goes, you know what? I almost did. When she fell out on that one turn. But you know what? You work hard for your money, and $50 is $50. And what I want to say, my message is this morning, $50 is $50. The cost paid from our country, from the Revolutionary War to now, is dear, dear. And when we say the Pledge of Allegiance like we did, you know what that pledge means? When you say, I pledge allegiance, here's the way I look at it. I pledge my life. I'm willing to die for this country. And I'm going to do everything I can do that God puts in front of me, including speaking to people and encouraging you. To talk to veterans. Veterans, say your story. Do everything you can to make this country the greatest country, stay the greatest country on this earth. I went up to a veteran and I said, "Thanks for serving. Really appreciate it." He looked at me and he said, "You're worth it." And then I thought, am I living the kind of life that I'm worth your service? Am I being the best I can be to be patriotic for what was paid for me, for what you guys did for me? And you know what? I'm 68. Some of you are older, some of you are younger. 95. Where's the 95 guy? Where's he at? You got us all beat. God's put us here for a purpose, and I believe to promote our country, and we are always on duty. We're always on a mission. We aren't discharged to the day we leave this earth, and all our thoughts and intentions should be to be as patriotic, to support our veterans, to support our country, talk to people about our freedom and the cost, talk to our people about the importance of our flag that people died for, and make our country be the best we can be, and pray for our country. Last statement. The Bible says this: whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. And that's what I want to encourage you. Live your life with all your might. Veterans, talk to your kids. Let's make this country the best it can possibly be, okay? Thank you so much, and veterans, thank you for your service. Sir, it is a pleasure to be here today. You hear? Thank you.
Thanks so much, James. All right, we are just about ready to wrap up. I think Robin has some raffle announcements to make. On the program it says Robin. It doesn't say Mike, but that's okay. Oh, also, quick reminder, after we finish up with this, I do want to encourage all of our veterans that are here today to stick around for a few minutes. We're going to take a group photo in the back in front of the Northwest State backdrop back there, so I'll remind you again, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was ready. Okay.
So we have gift cards for gas.
Yes.
Gift cards for Subway. Gift cards for gas. Gift cards for Subway, and gift cards for Walmart for all of our veterans. So as we call your name, just raise your hand, and these two lovely ladies will hand you your gift.
You good?
This was the drawing that you signed your name up for. All right. Okay, first one.
No, I can help you, Robin. You want me to read
Yes.
them? All right, I'll read them.
John.
John Bockelman, congratulations back there. Just raise your hand and we'll get you everything. Here you go, Robin. I'll just take the whole stack and then I'll pass them to you. Chris Stoffer.
Over there.
All right. Doug Warren. Doug is over there. Thank you, Todd. Brent Bischoff. Lonnie Smith. Lonnie, all right, there we go. Will Wagner. All right, back. Jason Salmon. Sorry. Guy Ankney. Walt Guthrie. Yeah, there's Walt.
95.
Suzette Leininger. Back there. Bruce Bernath. Don Rita. Don, all right, Don's right back there. Dave Lichty. Also back there. our friend John Wilson, Brenda Dane, Linda Bernath, Chris Meyer, Josh Wilcox, Eric Jones, Mike Foreman. I'm not sure if he's in here, but we'll get him.
Okay.
He's making announcements, closing my building up again. Eric Dane, Todd Hernandez, and I guess Mickey Schwartzbeck. We can give him something, right? Did we miss any veterans? Did we get everybody? Please don't be shy. We missed one.
We missed one.
I'm out.
No,
Well,
we have extra.
here, give him Mike's.
Yeah, we'll give him.
Don't tell Mike that we gave his stuff away. All right. Cool. Thanks, Robin. One last thing. We're going to get everybody up and moving, so if you could please rise. My friend Kerry is going to play, and on the back of your program are all the lyrics to God Bless America. So if we can sing that together. And veterans, again, when we're finished with the song, meet back in that corner for a picture. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thanks.
Let's sing. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night.